All right, welcome to the Small Talk Podcast. Today we're talking about navigating the crazy real estate market that we have, and we have some guests in the room, Joni Stiling, Jim Hocking, and Bailey Budnik, and I'm your host, Mike Smallegan. Today we're going to talk about different challenges that buyers are facing in the real estate market. So I think really the biggest thing that's going on right now is interest rates. How is that affecting your buyers, Joni?
Well, it scares people because they were seeing payments that, maybe were $2,000 a month and now they're $2,500 a month. And so then their purchase power comes down. And then we have to get creative and work on seller concessions and things like that to try to get the payment where they're comfortable, or they're put into a different price bracket. And then they're not finding things that meet what they want. So I think the good news is that with higher interest rates, we're seeing less offers. And the buyer pool really has slowed down. So instead of having 20, 25 offers on all the homes, we're seeing a handful. And so instead of having to go 50,000 over, it's maybe 10.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of a give and take. And I think, for buyers, I keep preaching this to all my buyers. If interest rates do come back down in the spring, all the buyers are going to come out of the woodwork that have been sitting on the sidelines, and they're going to drive those prices right back up.
Yeah.
So as you're going to have the same payment, you're just going to be paying $50,000 more for the same house.
Yeah. Well, and here's an example, too, that I use a lot because I had a buyer who was shopping a couple of years ago at 3%, and they wrote a couple offers. They got stomped out. Like, they were doing all the right things, but competition was too much for their mental health. So they dropped out. They came back a couple of years later, and not only were rates a little over double what they were before.
It's crazy how quick that happened.
Yeah, from 3%, and she ended up buying a house at 7%. But, she went from having a 2.7% 15-year mortgage to a 7.25 30-year mortgage, a higher payment. And, had she bought in 2020, 2021, she would have had about $60,000 or $70,000 just in equity. She would have been able to move up at the time that she bought her first house. So,
she might have got that house $5,000 cheaper.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, buy when you're ready, but if you want to become a homeowner, there are strategies that you can implement to get there without stretching
Absolutely.
Yourself thin.
Yeah. The 2-1 buy down is a good one. I know a lot of lenders are offering different financing options to help you through this, and then being able to refinance if the rates do come down. But like you said, I've had so many buyers that sat on the sidelines, and then when they came to get back in the game, they were like, now I can't. I'm priced out now.
Yeah.
And
or they're
not only
waiting
did I lose the equity, but I also lost the opportunity.
Yep. And they're waiting for election year or something. But I mean, all this pent up demand is, if rates come down, prices are going up again, and it's going to be.
Yeah. You got to look at more than just purchase price, right? Mm-hmm. So moving on, I know last year we had this extreme demand for new properties or new listings on the market. Are you guys seeing anything different? Like, what are you seeing now, Bailey? Are you seeing about the same inventory as last year? Or what's on the market right now?
It's similar. I mean, I don't know exact numbers off the top of my head of like what it is this year versus last year, but the bottom line is there's still not enough houses for the amount of buyers that are out there, and there won't be for the foreseeable future. I think this market that we're in now largely is going to be the same for the coming years, unless we start building a ton of houses and making them affordable enough for people to get into them.
Yeah, what other ways can we find homes for our buyers?
So I've had quite a few where I do off-market
Yep.
for my clients. So I'll go, they're like, I want to be in this specific condo building or this specific neighborhood. Well, then let me go find you a house there if there aren't any for sale. Mm-hmm. So knocking on doors, talking to people, I would say probably 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'd sell for that price. I didn't realize it was in demand. Not everyone follows real estate like we do,
Right.
So they're like, oh, wait, my house is worth what? Mm-hmm. So I think doing that, and then also, our company team meetings, we have off-market opportunities every week that people are talking about. And so just being able to collaborate with other agents in the office and finding opportunities for buyers to where they can get a deal, the sellers don't have to have 100 people through their house, and it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think going back to like the higher rates, it's always a give and take. Mm-hmm. Everything's always a give and take. If rates come down, there'll be more buyers, prices will go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the same thing here, like we're in the spot with low inventory. Rates are also high. There's lots of competition, but there's always ways, either off market or ways that you can help your clients in those competitive situations do things that other agents or other buyers aren't doing. That doesn't necessarily cost them more money either.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Thinking outside the box.
yeah.
So, on that same topic, essentially, how are you guys winning offers, right? So, if there's a limited amount of homes and there's still a lot of buyers, what do you guys do that makes your offers stand out? How are you guys winning at such a high level right now?
So some of the things that I like to do, first of all, I always start with educating my buyer. Here's all the different things that we can do. Here's my tool belt. You know, you don't have to use any of them. You can use all of them, but here are your options. So you know that what's out there and what's available for you. I would hate to, lose an offer and they're like, well, why didn't we offer an appraisal gap? Well, you never told me about that. So I want to tell them about everything. And then just good communication with the other, like the listing agent, calling them, talking to them, asking the lender to reach out and speak on their behalf. I think that's huge. We do, because I never recommend waiving inspections ever.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people are doing it to win in this market, I don't feel you need to, and I don't feel like it's in my client's best interest. So I always do a 2-day inspection period. That way the seller doesn't even have to pen the property. We'll get in, get out, and we're doing our due diligence. That way everybody wins. Again, I'm always looking for those win-wins. But I think good communication, having the lender reach out, and then, even if you can't offer a huge appraisal gap, offering something. Right? Just showing them, that you care and you're trying. Maybe you only have $1,000 to offer it. Check that box. Making a well-rounded offer. And then I've had clients who have offered an appraisal gap and said, hey, if not needed, we'll give a little bit to the sellers for their closing costs. Again, it's just another box to check to make our offer stand out.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like she said, start with education up front because and for them, for their sake, because this market, it's not easy for buyers. It's stressful. It's emotional. It's you get beat up pretty easily. So if you can minimize some of that and do some upfront damage control to help them understand everything that they can do, because if they don't do that, if you don't sit down with them and educate them, you're going on a lot more showings, you're losing a lot more, and they are learning as they go.
Yeah.
And that's not good for you as the agent. It's not good for the buyer. So, that's my focus is education.
I agree.
Yeah.
An hour up front can save you 20 hours in the long run.
Well, and education from the lender also. Education from the lender, if the lender is not taking the time to do a 30 to 60 minute Zoom with the buyer, they need a different lender, and you need someone with a brand name in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that help your offer, Bailey?
The lender?
Yeah.
Oh, I've had it several times where you call on a property, you submit an offer, and you say, hey, the pre-approval letter is real. Their assets, income, credit have been verified. He's on it, or she. They're going to work to close this deal guaranteed, basically, right? And it helps, especially if the lender calls and says the same thing. I've done the groundwork. It's good if they're even through pre-underwriting. Conditions have already been met. It will be smooth. Nothing's going to come up. That, to me, if I was a listing agent or a seller even, that would look a lot better than a thing that's who's this guy on this pre-approval letter? I haven't heard from him. I don't know him. Is everything verified? I don't know. It's not on the letter. I think what really it boils down to anymore is being a person and talking person to person. Communication, like everybody said, is absolutely key. If the listing agent doesn't know you and the sellers don't know you, why would they go with your offer over somebody else that they know if they're similar?
Yeah. And just verifying things with lenders. When I have a listing, I call the lender. If I see a $20,000 appraisal gap,
absolutely,
I'm going to call and say, do they have enough to close this if it doesn't appraise and they have to pay all this? And
asking for proof of funds.
You've got to have that.
Including that when you're submitting an offer for your buyer, letting them know hey, let's make sure that we cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's and send them the proof of funds right with the offer. Then they don't even have to ask.
I also definitely agree with the education piece. I like what Jim called it, damage control up front. I think that's funny. I always go to the term of under promising and over delivering. If you can set expectations of it's not going to be super easy, it will be work mentally, and it's going to take time. If that happens, they're already expecting it. But when you can over deliver and say, hey, I got this off market opportunity, you don't have to pay over asking, or like, hey, we weren't the highest offer, but we did this, and they liked it better and they went with ours.
Sure.
Then you look like a rock star.
Yep.
Because you've set that expectation,
Yeah, so when I list a property, I'm getting several offers from agents where they don't even make a phone call
Yep.
or send a email with that offer about their client or about the terms.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing differently than just sending an email over and letting it go?
So okay, I start like once we leave the property, I call and say, hey, we really liked it. The buyers loved it. They have this lender. They're qualified like this. Blah blah blah. You strike rapport with the listing agent then, and then you call them 2 days later. Say, hey, how's showing traffic been? You're kind of getting in with them, and it makes them want to work with you as the buyer's agent more. And then by the time you submit the offer, you're like chumming it up. You're boys, or like just your buddies by then.
And it's like, I had it on a listing recently. Somebody did that to me. Right after the showing, they called. They said, hey, we loved it. Like, they had a couple questions. I answered them. They're like, great. They're this lender, this type of financing is what they're thinking. Like, we just wanted to make sure you knew. And then they checked in again, and they checked in again. What's at the top of my head now is this lady's representing her buyers, and she's like the only agent's name that I remember because she's called me 3 times.
Yep.
Right? And it's not like annoying.
Yeah.
She's calling to get information, just like we do with our buyers.
Yeah,
It's
working
great.
for your clients.
It makes a difference. One thing I always do too is before I submit an offer, I'm always going to call the listing agent and just say, hey, what's important to your seller other than obviously price? Like, tell me the other things. Maybe like, oh, well, we're under contract on this other house. I know we only asked for 30 days, but if we get 45, that would just make them feel comfortable.
Or a quick
Absolutely.
close or something.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
we really need a quick close. Well, let me make sure that the lender knows that so we can put a rush on everything. Like, whatever we need to do, just tell me what it is.
Yep.
So I think that's huge too. And like you said, becoming best friends with the listing agent.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to call them and get to know them.
Yeah.
What's even better is when you already know them.
Oh, for sure. That's
Hey, there we
huge.
go.
And I mean, once you have a few years in the business and you've worked with people multiple times, you have an in already. But like, I mean, example, I had a listing a couple weeks ago in a really busy neighborhood, and I think we had 22 offers or something like that, which that was great and everything. But one thing that I included in the offer breakdown email that I send out after we select the winner was only because it was literally only about 40% of the agents reached out at all.
Which I don't understand. It's the most basic thing you can do.
For sure.
Call and confirm they received it. What if you put like the wrong letter in the email? You put an M instead of an N, and all of a sudden they didn't even get it.
It
Yeah.
has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really,
I mean,
just
some of
basic.
them would text, which is fine, like a confirm receipt, but a phone call will go so much further.
I do that with my offer breakdowns too. I say the number of
Shame them.
agents. I mean, not necessarily, but like
Yeah.
a little bit. Like they got to know.
Yeah,
and I
for
put
sure.
a separate paragraph. It's like the communication made a big difference
Yep.
to my sellers. They wanted to work with somebody that seemed reputable and would take the time to reach out.
Well, and it might help an agent who doesn't have the support they need at another brokerage to
Who doesn't know.
let them know
Yep.
that communication is huge.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. I do that too in my breakdown.
Yep.
How many conventional? How many FHA?
Yeah.
How many? Like, what were the inspections like?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Because and we all send those out because we appreciate it when we get it, and that's like
Exactly.
getting an offer breakdown of like these are the details of the other offers. Like they don't tell you the winner, but they tell you all the details of other offers, and that helps you educate your buyers even more. Like especially the buyers.
what
I
you're
use
up
my buyer
against.
consult.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
And the offer breakdown spreadsheets I use those in a buyer consult to show them, because if you tell someone who's a little bit weary of you, they don't know you yet, like, yeah, you've got to write 50,000 over and do a $10,000 gap. They're like, okay, a salesman's trying to jack up his commission, and it's just not what it is.
Yep. But having the proof.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah. How do
you show
it
them the
looks
proof?
like.
Yeah.
Show and don't tell.
Yeah.
Don't tell.
Exactly.
What are some other ways that you can show proof? Like, what are you guys doing to, I guess, reassure buyers that they are writing a strong offer that is not more than what they have to do?
CMAs. So
Yep.
yeah, comparative, for those who don't know, comparative market analysis. If someone is kind of trying to figure out, what should I offer on this house? And obviously you're going to advise them based on the numbers in the area. So you look at the recent sales in this quick market. I look maybe 30 or 60 days in the neighborhood. and see what the comparable sales were listed at and what they sold for. And
What the percentage is.
yeah, especially at lower price points. If you have a $200,000 house that's in good shape, it's probably going to sell $30 to $50,000 over. That's
least.
not, that's not out of the realm of, like, even with 7% interest rates, it's not outside realism. So
Yeah. Well, and I think also, like with that, I like to pull up the MLS with my clients during that consult
Yep.
and just kind of go through everything. What do you think of this one? Would you have paid what it went for?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would have went for less. Okay, well then let's, what do you think about this one? Oh, well that one, yeah, no, absolutely, I would have paid that. Okay, well let's broaden our search around that one.
Yep.
And then vice versa too. Instead of, like you said, like the 200s, I just had one that was listed at 225, went for 285.
Yep.
So maybe instead you're looking at 300 that has been on the market for more than 7 days.
Yeah.
And so, using both ends of the scale for them.
actually, that just made me think of something. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I had a buyer, and this is about price point and getting the most for your money. So their pre-approval was a little over 300. We started shopping at like the low 200s, so they had room to move, and they were getting slaughtered. They had a small appraisal gap. They were competitive enough, but just not quite. And after they got beat up a few times, I was like, how about this? You just wrote an offer $60,000 over with a $10,000 appraisal gap and a 1-day inspection period on a 1,000 square foot bungalow. If we go to Granville and we look at this 2,500 square foot like walkout ranch that's been on the market for 19 days, we can probably get a deal. Mm-hmm. We got it for $35,000 under asking price. We had the sellers cover 3% of their closing costs. They went to the table with less money. They got 2.5 times as much house.
Yep.
And a neighborhood that they could probably stay in for the rest of their lives if they wanted to. Like, a lot of these first-time home buyers are getting homes that are going to last them 2 to 5 years. And if, they, instead of going the opposite way, like going lower to be more competitive, we went higher and got a deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I always talk about thinking outside the box. What are our strategies?
Yep.
What are you comfortable with? I always talk price, location, condition. Pick two. And if condition isn't a big deal, then let's look at stuff that's been on the market for a little while. Maybe you want sweat equity. Also, I had a client who was approved under 200,000 trying to look in Grand Rapids, and we ended up going outside of the city, and we went out to Hastings, and he found a gorgeous house that had like a fenced in backyard for his kids. Everything we were finding in Grand Rapids had like water in the basement, or had been completely gutted, or was going 50,000 over, and he couldn't compete. And so just by going outside of the city a little bit, that location piece, he was able to find a great home for his family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I was going to say something about getting people to like trust what you're saying.
Yep.
For telling them to like do all these things to win offers. I really like looking at offer breakdowns. That works a lot. I like looking at the MLS and past sales and showing them what you did. Raw data, I think, works very well for people like that.
Even people that aren't like data centric.
Not your high
Just
eyes.
black and white.
Yep.
Like, if they don't know what's going on, they're looking to you to be the expert. You saying, well, I think it's going to go for this, or you'll probably have to do this. That's not very like
Reassuring.
Yeah, it's not reassuring. If you say, here are 7 homes that are similar that have gone 15 to 20% above asking, and I've called the agents and I know for a fact the winning offers all had an appraisal gap, shortened inspection, like that's just data. Like, you're not saying it'll probably happen. It's like, it does and it will.
Yeah, it's not my opinion. Here's the data to back it
Yeah.
up.
Well, and I mean, and taking that a step further, like will this home appraise? Well, I mean, looking at the neighborhood, looking at the MLS, there's a lot of comps that are recent that are close to this place and that an appraiser is probably going to use. So while I can't say that it's 100% going to appraise, it's got a pretty good likelihood of doing that just because there's so many hot recent comps.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you have to do a CMA on any home. Any home that I have a client offering on, I'm doing a CMA for them because I want them to know the data.
So I don't think the public realizes that just because the list price is a certain number, there doesn't need to be any type of research to justify that number to put that on the MLS. So if it's priced high, it doesn't there's no backing behind that, right?
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys as buyer's agents to explain the price to your clients, and
Right.
and it might not be what the seller is asking for, either higher or lower. So is there some situations where maybe you guys have ran into that, where maybe a property's been on the market and you've offered under because of a market analysis that you did?
I mean, well, and another thing too, to like, with some of the buyers who are a little bit more stubborn about paying over, like just explaining to the buyers that, hey, they probably, they're not, this is not a product on a shelf. This is a house. They have priced it competitively to drive traffic, and it's probably going to sell over. But just kind of showing people that that's not what the home is worth. It's what it's priced at, because they want to get something. They want to get the best offer. And on the flip side of that, if it's been on the market for 7 or more days, and if you look way back in the MLS, like, people didn't do price reductions for months. Mm-hmm. Now people are doing price reductions within a week.
Yeah.
So that's where the deals are, really.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Anything over 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll literally make that the search for some people. Like, we're only going to look at homes that have been on the market for 7 days plus. If we don't have an appraisal gap, or we need seller concessions, or, other some tricky financing or something like that, like, we're going to think outside the box. We're only going to look at homes that have been on the market for more than 7 days. And then I think also that's that location piece too. Like, what are you, and having that conversation, right? What are you willing to do? Where are your lines? Are you willing to go up to this? And I always ask people, like, if they say, oh, I want to find a house between, 3 and 350. Okay, so if I found something at 275, you wouldn't want to see it? If I found something at 320 that had been on the market for 10 days, would you want to see it? Oh, well, yeah, because people only know what they know, right?
Yeah.
Until we help provide that education for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so our homes are our biggest investment, right? And you guys are helping buyers secure that every day. How does that affect the buyer's equity long term? Like, so when somebody buys a house, they shouldn't just look at it as short term gains, right? This is a long term process, and maybe share some stories of people that have sold for way more than they bought it for after owning it.
I have a pretty good one from a seller I helped last year. They bought the house at the very end of 2019. They sold it March of 2022, and they walked away from the table after paying off their mortgage, which they did a minimum down payment when they bought it.
Yeah.
They walked away from the table with $120,000 in their pocket. They bought the house for, it was in the low to mid 100s, and they sold it for $265. Yeah. That's nuts. And that's not super common but those are the opportunities that are there that I see being in the market for the next several years with the inventory issue and the pent-up demand.
Yeah.
I've had several clients that have done that.
You definitely have, yeah.
I had 2 clients back to back that were past clients. I helped them buy beginning of 2020. They just turned around and sold, and one of them he bought it for $185 and sold it for $250, and was like, oh, I can't even believe that. Like, you think about a savings account where you're getting 3% a year. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the biggest investment. Like, why would me and my husband don't have a 401k? Like, that's our house. Mm-hmm. That's my investment. That's my retirement. I had another client. She bought the house similar. I think it was like spring of 2020. Turned around and just sold it. She was able to sell it, pay off her mortgage, walked away with like close to $60,000. Used that as a down payment on a higher price point in a better neighborhood, and she was able to do 20% down and not have PMI anymore in 2 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years. It's incredible.
My first ever closing, I helped them buy. It was like it was 211 they bought at. They had their daughter live in it for 2.5 years. They didn't do anything. They sold it for $260. You know, and I closed one on Wednesday. They bought in like 2018 for like $150. We just closed them for $240.
Yep.
You know, that's nice. I mean, they walked away with $65,000.
I
the guy
personally
was like,
did it.
Like, that's an extra, $30,000 a year,
Yeah.
like that year. Cause people think about it like, oh, I'm going to work every day. I'm making this much money in a year. But like, if you live in a place for 2 to 5 years and you break up like that amount of money, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's a salary.
It's a side
Well,
job.
and a lot of these people too, they're able to take the proceeds of that sale even with higher interest rates, I have seen this where they had the same payment. Like you take the proceeds of the sale, you drop it on the next house in a higher price point, and you still have the same payment because you have so much down. Or they have a renovation budget or a furniture budget because they have put so much money down from the proceeds of the last sale.
Yeah.
I literally did it on my personal house.
Yeah.
So I bought a house in 2020 and turned around and sold it in 2022. 2 years, just about 2 years later, we did nothing to it. We put new appliances in it, and we made $77,000 in equity. We turned around, put that down 20% on another house that was almost twice as much, and now we have 4 times as much equity. I mean, like in 2 years, it's absolutely insane. Got rid of PMI, and that, like I said, that's my retirement fund now. And I have 3 acres and 3 times the house. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people look at savings accounts or 401k accounts as a way to build a retirement account or an investment account, where your home a lot of times is the
biggest investment you have. Yep.
So before we wrap up, what's like one golden nugget that you guys have for working with home buyers in today's crazy real estate market?
Well, yeah, find a real estate agent who is active in the market, not just Aunt Sally, who's had a real estate license for 20 years and does a deal here and there.
Unless Aunt Sally has done a lot of deals.
Unless she's done a lot of deals in today's market, because your recent activity matters, because you know what's going on the buy, on the sell side. Like you have a really good understanding of the market. Like, so hook up with someone like that, but also start the process early. Like don't go on a website and go book a showing and then just trudge your way through the market. Find someone that you mesh with, learn, and plan out ahead, maybe 3 to 6 months.
I would say, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say make the people that you choose to work with work for you and with you. The amount of times I hear people say like, oh, well, what's my payment going to be? I'm like, I don't know. That's more of a question for your loan officer, your lender. And they're like, well, I don't really want to make him do that. I'll just, that's his job. No, that's his job. That's his job. Just like our clients shouldn't have to worry about what to pay. They shouldn't have to worry about booking their own appointments. That's our job. Make sure the person or people you choose to work with are working for you. Not just being passive.
Sure.
Yeah, not just being passive.
I've had people before like, oh, I didn't want to bother you for a showing. It's like, that's my job.
Literally, yeah.
And I don't want you to I would rather you not go to an open house and tell me you want to write an offer. I'd rather take you through the house so I know what's going on with it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, so a big thing for me when I sit down and I educate my clients, starting early. So I always tell people, when you go to book a vacation, I spend a couple months figuring out where I'm going, if I'm flying or driving, what activities we're doing, if there's certain foods that are special for the area. And that's just a vacation. This is the biggest investment of your life. We need to sit down and go through the process and learn about all the ins and outs and figure out exactly how this is going to work. How do you like to be communicated with? Do you like text? Do you not? Do you like email? Would you rather me call you? How do you want to be treated, right? We treat others the way we want to be treated. Take it a step farther. Treat others the way they want to be treated. And so figuring that out, I've had a lot of success with my clients setting up times every week, Saturday morning from 9 to noon. Anything you find all week, we're going to put in that block, and we're going to go see all those homes together. And they're like, oh, then they know they have a spot on my schedule and they don't have to worry about bugging me. So that's been a huge thing for my clients. And I also think, everybody's looking on Zillow. Everybody's searching. People shouldn't have to find their own homes. The internet's going to do a faster job, obviously, so do your searching. But then I also check our hot sheets every day for my clients. Anything new that matches what they're looking for. Anything with a price reduction. Anything that's back on the market that maybe we looked at before. And I'm going to send those to them as soon as I see them. Because you want an agent who's going to work for you, work with you, just like your lender. And having a lender that doesn't just work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I need you available at 6 o'clock on a Sunday to call and speak on my client's behalf.
Yep.
It sounds a lot like this is a home buyer is selecting a real estate agent. Sounds a lot like them interviewing you for a job, right?
Yeah, it should
Would you
be.
compare it the same way?
Absolutely. I always tell people I'd love to interview for the job.
Should be. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you meet a buyer for the first time, you want to demonstrate your value to them, and hit it off on a personal level, but also, I always tell tell buyers, like, I'm not here to sell you this house. Like, that's not our job. Our job is to advise you on the buying process.
Yep.
And if the house works, great, but I'm gonna point out the water spot on the ceiling upstairs, and I'm gonna point out all the issues in the basement or how old the furnace is and things like that. So,
Or tell you flat out, hey, you shouldn't buy this house.
yeah, do not put an offer
I've
in.
done that several times, because ultimately, like, that's our job as a fiduciary, is to have their best interest at heart. Like, I don't want them to get into a house and be like, oh man, I can't believe we're stuck here. I want them to get into a house and be like, this is the best thing ever. Thank God Johnny told us not to buy that other one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for tuning in to our podcast and talking about the real estate market. If you guys have any questions about buying or selling real estate, please reach out to someone here. And thanks. Thank you for watching this episode of the Small Talk Podcast with the Smallegan Real Estate Team. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our earlier episodes.